British spy named James Bond. He was a good spy. James Bond's secret agent number was 007. He had a license to kill. A license to kill means James Bond could kill anyone he wanted whenever he wanted. It's a good thing James Bond was a good guy and only killed bad guys. James Bond saved the world a lot of times. James Bond would drive the shiniest cars. He would wear the nicest clothes and play card games all the time. He also drank martinis and had his own theme song. All the girls liked James Bond. Even the bad girls wanted to kiss James Bond before they tried to kill him. Yeah, all the chicks dug James Bond. M is James Bond's boss. M would yell at James Bond sometimes, but M knew James Bond was good at saving the world. M's secretary is Miss Moneypenny. Miss Moneypenny liked James Bond too, but they were just friends, so they never kissed. Q would help James Bond on his missions. Q gave James Bond cool gadgets that helped him save the world. Q is very funny. Everyone liked James Bond except this one bald director named Mark. He was a bad man who only cared about Earth, water, air, and fire. He made James Bond be in a really bad movie, and everyone was sad. Then James Bond's movie studio lost all their money and they couldn't make another James Bond movie. Now everyone was really sad. The sky had fallen down on James Bond and no one could help him. Or maybe someone could. Another director named Sam told James Bond that he would help him. He said he would love to make a movie with him. That year was James Bond's 50th anniversary too. Sam said, "Let's make the best James Bond movie ever." James Bond said, "Okay. Why don't we call the movie Skyfall?"
You know, making a James Bond movie used to be a lot simpler than today. Things were much more clear-cut as to who was making the movie, what part they were playing in it, and what percentage of profits they'd see from it. Today, things somehow got so complicated it's hard to keep track of what is going on with 007 anymore. In 1961, producers Albert Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman created the production company Eon Productions. Everything or nothing. They also created the holding company of the James Bond screen rights, named Dan Jack, named after Broccoli and Saltzman's wives, Dana and Jacqueline. They set out to make a James Bond movie and ended up partnering with United Artists. United Artists gave them $1 million to make Dr. No. It was a big hit. Both sides were very happy. So UA and Eon continued their relationship. Eventually, the 007 film adventures would outlive United Artists, and then things started to get a little crazy. In 1981, United Artists was bought by MGM, and it would become known as MGM UA. Things eventually get so convoluted that it's hard to make sense of what is going on. It's not really with Eon. They've been at the center of the Bond films from the beginning. Even after the death of Broccoli, Eon has continued, with Broccoli's daughter Barbara and his stepson Michael. But the studios and distribution deals, co-distribution agreements, parent companies, and partnerships that Eon would find themselves in makes my head spin. Whereas at the beginning it was two partners sitting at a table having a quiet dinner, sharing an intimate 007 meal, today it's become a packed cafeteria with groups all trying to take a big old bite of what's on the table. Honestly, I don't find all the studio shuffling and deals that interesting. It's rather boring and it kind of gets me aggravated whenever I read about it. Sometimes it seems like all it has done is invite problems. It's certainly not as fascinating as the other headaches Eon has faced in its history. A dissatisfied star who felt he was grossly underpaid, Casino Royale being out of their reach, the annoying persistence of Kevin McClory, Like, all that stuff is entertaining to read about. It used to be the biggest obstacle for the producers was to have a James Bond actor for the movie. Now it's whether they can make the movie at all. You know, the beginning of a Bond film is usually with the gun barrel? Now it's more interesting to see what studio logo opens the movie. I really think that one day all movies will be made under the roof of one studio. And the names of all the well-known studios that ruled Hollywood back in the Golden Age will just become small subsidiaries of some big conglomerate. Every movie we go to see and every television and cable station will just be owned by one big mysterious organization. It's a shame that all this studio BS seems to screw up the Bond series. It seems like it happens way too often. Why can't they just get all their ducks in a row and just get Bond onto the screen? It's too bad Eon has to depend on any movie studio. It'd be great if they could just go ahead and make the movie on their own. Babs and Mike could be like traveling barkers, move from town to town and just show the movie as a traveling roadshow. At least we get a Bond movie instead of waiting for these suits to try to figure out their problems. So basically, MGM, the once mighty movie studio with the iconic Leo the Lion logo, found itself with major problems by 2010. They had accumulated $4 billion in debt and had to file for bankruptcy. MGM really hadn't been the powerhouse studio it had once been for a long time. And at a certain point, they began to frequently co-distribute movies with other companies. And what movies that did hit screens with Leo on it were not huge money-making successes. MGM became more focused on their hotel and casino than film production. The Bond films were one of MGM's most prized associations. They were one of the few moneymakers for them. They had struck a deal to co-distribute Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace with Columbia Pictures, which is owned by Sony. But then MGM filed for bankruptcy. Despite Craig saying he was really anxious to start on his third Bond movie, and fans being eager to go see it, Eon stepped back their work on it and announced they would have to wait until MGM's problems were fixed before getting to it. This MGM hiccup would end up delaying Bond 23 until 2012. Fortunately for MGM fans, their hotel and casino remained open for business. In the end, Bond fans had to wait 4 years for a new Bond movie after Quantum of Solace. This was significant, and not only did it really aggravate fans, I know I was aggravated, but it also marked the second longest wait between films in the series' history. The title holder was that 6-year gap between License to Kill and GoldenEye. But that hiatus brought with it a slew of changes to the series while it went into hibernation. A new Bond actor that more people were happy with, a new political landscape where the Cold War secret agent would have to navigate through, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson coming on board as sole producers, with Cubby Broccoli, who was already ill at the time, being given the credit of consulting producer on his final Bond film, GoldenEye. You knew it was a different era when the video game of GoldenEye was just as big of a hit as the movie. No one really cared about the Living Daylights video game. This time, however, the hiatus felt more like an extremely inconvenient speed bump than anything. It just interrupted the pace and success the series had found itself in with Daniel Craig's new Bond. All the apprehension with a blonde guy as James Bond was long gone. Audiences and fans liked the gritty approach the series had headed into. The series had broken new ground with a direct follow-up film, the first ever official Bond sequel. Well, most people thought that movie stunk, but no one was ready to completely dismiss the series after Quantum of Solace. They thought Craig could do better, expected a better Bond film from him for his third time, and were ready to go see it. Then the series went black. 4 years can be a lifetime in a film series. Just think, in 4 years during the Connery years, fans had seen Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball. That all happened within 4 years. Plus Connery went off and did a bunch of other movies in between those. Within 4 years, Lazenby was an unknown Australian model, to being cast as James Bond, making what some consider the best Bond movie ever, then deciding to leave the role, thereby making it one of the most legendary what-were-they-thinking decisions in cinema history. Well, all that took place in even less than 4 years. He really moved on that. During most of his tenure, Roger Moore's average release schedule of his Bond movies was 3 years. Within 4 years, Timothy Dalton was cast, made 2 Bond movies, and then left the role. Within 4 years, Brosnan debuted as Bond and made 3 Bond movies. It's not much of a surprise that at a certain point, a lot of fans questioned whether Craig would even come back once the next Bond film was finally underway. It also didn't help optimism that we started seeing these ominous headlines from the media saying the Bond films might possibly be over. Saying that stuff really draws attention to these rags. Longtime Bond fans are quite familiar with those predictions. It's clear Babs and Mike weren't thrilled with this waiting period. I'm sure MGM wanted Bond films to be churned out as fast as possible, since that was one of their few profitable properties they had a hand in. It's better than banking on the money they were getting from Pink Panther 2 and Zookeeper. Then of course Craig. Betcha he wasn't too happy with this delay. It's funny about Bond actors. It must be a great gig playing James Bond, but it's also a major commitment. You got the filming of the movie, and naturally the endless promotion of it. Going around the world doing thousands of interviews, answering the same questions over and over again. I'll get back to that. But you're also giving up the prime leading man years of your life for this gig. Yeah, you'll get a nice payday from this, but I would imagine it must be a pain to try to balance their Bond commitments in between wanting to do other work and being able to do other types of roles. All that money probably helps to keep them happy, but it still must get frustrating. So if there was any kind of upside to this postponement of Bond 23, it allowed Craig to go off and do some other stuff to keep busy. Craig had been kicking around for quite a while before being cast as Bond. He always kept busy and had worked with some pretty talented people. One of the directors he had worked with was Sam Mendes in 2002's Road to Perdition. Their collaboration and friendship from there would set the stage years later when Mendes came on board to direct Skyfall. What's interesting about Craig and his role in the Bond series is him not just being the lead actor, but also how much influence he's gotten to exercise, and a more pronounced creative role in the Bond movies than his predecessors ever had. By the time Spectre came around, Craig would have a co-producer credit.
This never happened to the other fella.
You could say, well, it's sort of an honorary title. He probably actually doesn't do very much. But he was the one said to be responsible for Mendes joining the Bond family. It was said he contacted Javier Bardem. In fact, I always thought he might have had a hand with the selection of casting of Ben Whishaw as Q. I'm basing this on them having worked together previously. It was the same with Jeffrey Wright. But I've never heard that confirmed though. At the very least, I would think Babs and Mike would have asked Dan his opinion on them before bringing them into the Bond films. He became more like a partner with Babs and Mike than just a hired hand. Broccoli and Saltzman probably would never have been willing to give up any kind of control to their leading men. Even when Brosnan came on board, Babs and Mike were firmly at the helm. I highly doubt they would have even listened to his suggestions. Or maybe they would have listened, but didn't really pay him much mind. Remember when he wanted Monica Bellucci for Tomorrow Never Dies, and the producers, or MGM, or maybe both, they nixed that idea? Maybe it was because the suggestion came from him. 18 years later, her being part of a Bond film seemed like a much better idea. Maybe they just wanted to wait until she was over 50 before using her. So the often told story as to how Mendes came on board was that Craig had met up with him at a party. I think I read it was Hugh Jackman's birthday party, but I'm not sure. Craig simply asked Mendes if he would be interested in directing Bond 23. Mendes gave the affirmative. Mendes met with Babs and Mike, and boom, the collaboration started rolling. Well, rolling only so far because of this MGM mess. While MGM was trying to figure out what was going on, fans were left tapping their toes. Work on the film was officially suspended in April 2010. Mendes was said to be a consultant at the time, although we all knew what role he was meant to be if MGM could untangle their mess. This delay did have an upside in the way. Although Mendes and production halted, it allowed more time to be worked on the script of Bond 23. The original screenwriter, Peter Morgan, would leave during the suspension. But behind the scenes, Mendes was continuing to work on the script with Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and John Logan. At least they were trying to take some advantage of this delay. This was quite a contrast to what went down with Quantum of Solace and what Mark Forrester had to work with. You know, Mendes didn't have to make the movie up as he filmed it. You know, that's always a plus. While all this was going on, what Bond fans really wanted to know was when was the next Bond film. We could wait for Cowboys and Aliens too. Finally, dopey MGM was able to exit out of bankruptcy. In January 2011, Bond 23 was given a release date of November 2012, and production would begin in late 2011. Oh, and surprise, surprise, the film would be part of a year-long celebration to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Bond series. The cynical part of me suspects that despite all the studio problems and delays, the producers, no matter what they were saying, weren't planning on releasing Bond 23 until 2012 anyway, just so they could make it coincide with the 50th anniversary date. They love marking these milestones and making a big stink about them. Plus, they get a lot of mileage from the free press that comes with it for the new film. Fans might have thought things were all cleared up for 007, and we wouldn't hear about any more troubles for the foreseeable future. Fat chance. On November 6, 2015, Sony's distribution deal to co-produce the James Bond series with MGM and Eon expired with the release of Spectre, and Eon could possibly move Bond to a whole new studio, where probably they'll encounter a whole new set of problems eventually. In November 2011, one of those nifty press conferences was held in London to announce the title of the new Bond movie, introduce the cast, and to start banging the drums. During the press conference, they really wanted to make note that it was 50 years to the day when Connery was announced he'd be playing 007 in Dr. No. I'm not sure if a lot of people showed up to that press conference, or I don't even think they had one. That was probably some one-sheet press release handed out to newspapers back then.
Introduction. This is 50 years to the day since Sean Connery was announced to cast in Dr. No, so this must make Bond 23 a rather special event for you guys.
I love these press conferences. It's so much more fun nowadays thanks to the internet, where you can watch the whole thing instead of just selected clips on the news. The whole thing streams for fans to watch, and it makes you realize how silly it all is. Like, just think about it. The filmmakers can't say anything about the movie. The producers are just going to say how great everything is. And the cast is there to be paraded out, to be photographed, and to avoid answering anything other than softball questions.
Could the new Bond ladies kind of give us a sense of the roles they're playing and expand on them, so to speak?
Well, I play a glamorous, enigmatic character called Severine.
And Naomi, what can you tell us?
That was a very strange news conference when you weren't allowed to give us any news.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a press conference, all right. And the press eat it all up.
To your far right-hand side.
What a pack of jackals. But the funniest thing to me are the reporters. Holy mackerel. They are the true source of entertainment during these things, since the majority of them ask the most ludicrous, off-the-wall questions imaginable. It's frightening to think these are the people who the world is getting their information from. Well, maybe the ones who cover more loftier subjects are better at this. I mean, let's face it, this is a press conference for a spy movie. But come on, it's like they're not even trying. Remember back during the Casino Royale press conference? Craig has announced as the new James Bond. They're going to adapt Ian Fleming's first Bond novel that they finally got the rights to. Martin Campbell is returning to direct. They're going to take the series in new directions. And what's the first question that gets asked?
James Bond is a legendary womanizer, and who would be your ideal Bond girl, Kate Moss or Sienna Miller?
Yeah, brilliant. Who let that reporter into the building?
To welcome you to this launch event for Bond 23.
Yeah, Daniel, are you gonna say my name's Bond, James Bond in this flick? I love that line.
So welcome to you all, thank you for coming.
Who will be playing a part I can't tell you about. in scenes that I can tell you nothing about.
Yes, Naomi, we all know you're playing Miss Moneypenny. Can you just confirm that here? I have a bet going with a friend and don't want to wait for the movie to come out for him to pay up.
Thank you all for coming. This is a great day.
Do try and restrict yourself to one question, and please pass the microphone along.
Daniel, in your recent movie, Cowboys and Aliens, you defeated an alien invasion force attacking the world. Do you think that James Bond could save the world from aliens?
Next year, when we open the picture, will be within days of when Dr. No opened 50 years ago.
Who will also be playing a part I can say nothing about in scenes that I can't really tell you about.
Really looking forward to make a fantastic picture.
This question is for Mr. Mendes. Sir, how will this movie end?
You have to wait and see.
Mr. Wilson, are you going to film a cameo in this movie?
Well, you'll just have to wait to see the film to find out.
Javier, wouldn't you rather play a good guy in a James Bond movie? I know I would. The bad guy usually dies in the end.
So it's our golden anniversary.
I can't give much away as far as that is concerned.
Bernice, you will soon become a member of the legendary pantheon of Bond girls, the most beautiful women in film. What's your favorite color?
50 years to the day.
The movie will reveal everything.
Microphone down at the front, please.
Barbara, both the ladies have been training vigorously in preparation for their roles, so I have to ask, what have you been doing? You're looking good, girl.
A lot of people, very little time. Let's crack through as fast as we can.
We also should add that we've assembled an incredible crew.
50 years of Bond.
I don't know what to answer to that.
This is for Dame Judi Dench. Dame Judy, I'm feeling a bit peckish. Might you have a candy bar or some lifesavers you could share?
A gentleman down there in the aisle.
The golden anniversary.
Daniel, what's more exhausting, filming the movie or having to promote it?
And there, ladies and gentlemen, we must leave it. The film starts shooting on Monday. Time is pressing. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
This was somewhat a different press conference than Quantum. In that one, I don't think anyone had any idea of what the movie was going to be, so there wasn't any real chance of them letting something slip. Here it seemed they were intentionally keeping things close to the chest. But essentially, they didn't really say anything. Admittedly, the Skyfall press conference wasn't as bad as some of the others have been. There really wasn't anything truly awkward that was asked, to my disappointment. I could go on goofing on the press conference stuff, but it gets its point across. It makes headlines, gets the movie trending early, and starts to build excitement. It's just so friggin' dopey, though. Actually, the press conference in Istanbul, that was held in April 2012 when they'd already begun production, had much more insightful content and answers than anything in the London one. It's funny, with all the promotion that a Bond film elicits, there's very little actual rewarding content that comes out of most of it. The basics are there, which is to get awareness out that a new Bond movie is being released. But other than that broad declaration, news outlets, journalists, entertainment shows don't really have much more to say about it, or appear to even want to learn more about it. Most of the time they don't have anything thought-provoking to ask the filmmakers and cast on these press junkets. Some of these interviews the actors are forced to sit through are pretty cringy, but that's the trade-off to get some airtime and to do some PR. They have to participate in this circus of publicity.
That once you've done the film, you now have to promote the film. So what is the one question that you are dreading being asked, that you're going to be asked over and over again till the 17th of November?
What's it like being a Bond girl?
Do you see you shirtless?
And you in this movie are the scariest man that I've ever seen, even when he's forced to wear Velcro shoes.
I had a big fight with my wife. She wanted to come along. She wanted to sneak in as some sort of production assistant.
Okay.
And I said, you can't do that. So I'm having a bad day. But good to see you.
If we can consider Javier Bardem the first Bond boy.
In the film, we see you drinking a beer, yet you ain't got a beer belly. So how does that work?
Man, his body is just a piece of art.
Oh, well.
Please tell me you're not just this way.
So how does it feel to join the ranks of the Bond girls?
It's a huge honour.
And
Yes.
We got an awful
Maybe
lot
it's
of
M
noise back
who's
there.
calling us. Is it people calling us to ask questions to them? Also?
The 7 franchise is 50 years old, so by my calculations, Bond is 80, and you look great. But what kind of skin cream are you using?
Your character actually takes out James Bond in this movie. Have you ever been taken out?
How do they get your abs? How do they get that look?
How did I get my abs?
All your movies, you know, can be so handsome, and then when we saw you in Bond, I thought, what? But I suppose that was the character.
Yeah.
One of the staples of the franchise, obviously, is when you say Bond, James Bond. Looking back over your previous characters in your career, they were to say that in the Bond format. Mikhail Blomkins.
Look, I can't do this. This is silly.
Are you ready for a little Bond quiz?
Oh no.
Name Daniel Craig's other 2 Bond movies.
What do you do as a bad guy?
I basically hurt people.
What was the Skyfall workout?
It's very boring.
How does it feel to be a Bond girl? Feels amazing.
Bond doesn't smile a lot. Is that something that you would like to change in the next one?
Is it a dream come true to be a Bond girl?
Absolutely.
God, you've got such complicated questions.
I think it's every guy's dream to play a secret agent. If you could have a secret identity, what would it be?
They make you look perhaps not quite your usual handsome self.
Oh, thank you for the handsome self thing.
You met James for 10 minutes, and then he walks naked into your shower. Why didn't you call the cops?
Who's a better Bond girl, Rihanna or Beyonce?
Will you just shave a little of my head?
Oh, please.
Hey, get in there.
Is it like that?
Yeah.
Cool. Is that something that you've done in real life? Nice.
Have I ever been shaved?
Yes, have you?
You've been talking about the film for 3 months now. Does it reach a point where you've discussed Bond to its extent?
I can last just this bit longer, I think.
I make it up. It's an acting job.
Yes, but you look so cool.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's not very nice of you. Thank you.
I don't even have a cell phone, so I'm not really plugged in yet.
You know? You stay away.
You have to unplug,
Yeah.
maybe.
But it's
Pleasure to meet
nice to see you. Nice to see you.
The big question is Bond bisexual?
Oh, yeah.
This is how you find out your Bond girl name. It's the word that you used to describe your privates when you were little, and the surname is your grandmother's maiden name.
For my private?
All right, talk about getting fit.
Oh, I'd love to. Great.
So what does it feel like to first have the title of being a Bond girl?
The absolute madness of Javier. I mean, the guy is certifiable. Did he scare you even on the set in between with the blonde wig and the...
In your world, who do you respect, admire?
In my world?
Yeah, in your other world.
I wouldn't want to talk about it. It's kind of private.
That's okay.
I'm actually surprised that you feel the weight of responsibility in a way, because it's such a big franchise, but you still...
Just seen that poster.
Yeah, I know.
I'm the bloke front and centre.
Robert Daniel Craig,
Thank you.
Very good. Perfect. Am I good? Very
You
good.
are good.
It's always the same kind of questions, like, do you do your own stunts, or what's your favorite Bond movie? How is this Bond movie different? Why are the locations important? Are you worried about being typecast? Was it huge pressure because it's the 50th anniversary? How do you get in shape? What's it like to be James Bond? They should have been celebrating 50 years of nonsensical questions. The promotion for Bond has always been a huge part of the deal, but really, I think it's one of the biggest downsides to playing Bond, or being in a Bond movie. I think it's probably more exhausting to do all the promotion and sit-down interviews than actually making the movie. This stuff seems like it takes more endurance than running after bad guys and doing stunts. I would take getting harnessed up onto the side of a building over sitting in a stuffy hotel room with an endless parade of journalists sitting in front of me asking some of the most insipid, boring, repetitive questions imaginable. Oh, I can either get shot at, fall down a lot, and get trapped in a burning building with no way out, or I can do another day of PR? Should I bring the matches? Ian should give the cast a helpful pamphlet at the beginning of the promotion circuit with tips of how to answer the inevitable monotonous questions that are going to get hurled at them. The marketing of it is more important than the actual content that comes out from all these interviews. You'll get a good reporter asking some decent questions every now and then.
Wow, that's really... I love your questions. Oh my gosh, are you guys going to have the same questions all day? They're great, Walter.
But most of it's garbage.
So the Bond characters get such cool gadgets. Is there anything that you would love to have in real life, and what would you use it for?
All this promotion must have worked, since Skyfall was a huge hit. But man, the cast really worked hard at this. There was that quote that spread around like wildfire from Craig during the Spectre promotion about him saying he'd rather slash his wrists than play James Bond again. It was probably the 900th time he was asked that day. He's got to expect this question, but it must wear him down.
The ending feels like a farewell. Is it?
I don't know.
I can understand why he would say that. Maybe he could just save time and just tweet out a response to that question once and for all, and save the frustration of putting on a forced grin and having to answer it again and again and again.
I've been doing interviews all day and people have been asking me, and I think I've been rather coy, but I kind of felt like, you know, sort of, oh, I was going to sort of speak the truth, I should speak the truth to you. You should...
Daniel Craig, will you return as James Bond?
Yes.
I, for one, and I know many people were really, really thrilled to hear that you were going to be doing another movie or two as James Bond.
I haven't. I'd hate to sort of kind of
burst the bubble.
Here, but no decision has been made at the moment. There's a lot of noise out there, and nothing official has been confirmed.
I have to apologize to all the people I've done interviews with today because I wanted to tell you.
Being able to keep it together in this assembly line of promoting the movie would probably be tough for anyone.
I bullshit in interviews.
That's one thing Brosnan was really good at.
Yeah, I can bullshit with the best of them.
No matter how many interviews answering the same questions he sat through, he always seemed pretty enthusiastic to answer them and really tried hard to sell the movie.
Well, this time we got a surfing stunt.
A surfing stunt, yes, exactly.
It's pretty amazing. Lee Tamahori directed this film. He's done an amazing job on the picture.
I have been known to bullshit, you know.
Roger Moore was good at this too. He always brought a sense of humor with him to these reporters and gave good soundbite-worthy quips.
Hanging off the Golden Gate Bridge, that you? Well, of course it is. What you see, you believe, don't you? Yeah. Right, you believe it. You'll believe anything.
What is more exhausting, making a Bond picture or doing an interview?
Well.
On the other hand, I always thought Dalton must have hated doing this stuff. Like he would rather be anywhere other than having to talk to the press and sell his Bond movie.
You can talk about a movie, but ultimately it doesn't matter what you say. What counts is what the audience when they see it. I mean, all you can see is go and see it.
He was usually very serious and barely ever smiled, just like his Bond. I suspect he was secretly thinking, get me back to the theater. I always imagine after, I don't know how many hours and days and weeks and continents the cast go to promote the newest Bond film. After it's all done, they just want to go out onto the balcony and scream, or they just want to start tearing the hotel apart and do something to release all that pressure from this. Yeah, these guys are getting a good payday, and I think they really earn that money doing the PR. I don't really pay too much attention to these interviews anymore. I mean, maybe it's the cynical part of me, but I think most of them are just a waste of time. I'll watch the press conference just to see the comedy unfold in that sideshow, but as for the talking head interviews, I'll pass. I didn't even watch any of them until this review, and they're pretty much all filler for entertainment shows. Oh, that short film of Craig and the Queen at the Olympics gave the return of Bond after 4 years huge press.
Good evening, Mr. Bond.
That one was pretty funny, though. One good thing that came out of this big 50th anniversary was the documentary Everything or Nothing about the history of the Bond series. And surprisingly, it doesn't shy away from some of the more negative things about the series that have happened.
There was the invisible car. Everybody thought it was the most ridiculous idea.
See? I'd much prefer to watch interviews that have a bit more of a removed and honest perspective about the films, rather than the contractual obligatory ones that are done to promote the current movie.
Guy's surfing a tsunami.
That's an honest interview. Okay, let's get to Skyfall.
From now on, you two will forever be known as the Bond girls. Has that sunk in yet, and how does that feel?
It's a real honor for me.